Greetings, salutations, respect and love. I am Scott. You're in the Prog Corner. And today we're going to be talking about the Moody Blues. So I'm going to try to keep it nice and calm, in keeping with the music. You know, the Moody Blues weren't that bombastic type of band that would blow your heads off with the, decibel levels and, Marshall stacks, but they were amazing. I've had the Moody Blues in my life since I can remember. We had all their early albums growing up as a kid. So researching this episode, I learned a whole bunch about this band that I never knew. Like the fact that the band actually can trace its origin all the way back to 1958 in a band called El Riot and the Rebels. Ray Thomas and John Lodge were both in that band. Later on, Mike Pinder joined. Now, there were a couple other Birmingham area bands that members of the Moody Blues were called from. You had Danny and the Kings. Clint Warwick was in that band. You had Jerry Levine and the Avengers, Graham Edge, and some dude named Roy Wood, who'd later on go on to join ELO. Denny and the Diplomats had Denny Lane, who was on the first Moody's album, later on went on to join Wings, and some other cat named Bev Bevan, who also went on to Fame and Fortune in ELO. All those bands split up, so they decided they'd try to do something at some point. Ray Thomas and Mike Pinder joined up with Graham Edge and Denny Lane in May of 1964. Originally, they wanted John Lodge in the band, but he was still in college, so they went with the Clint Warwick dude. Mike Pinder at this point was working for the UK branch of Mellotron, so he knew that instrument inside and out probably better than anybody. In fact, he was the guy who told the Beatles to buy one. Big part of prog history right there. They were calling themselves at this point the M&B 5. They were looking for a sponsorship from the Mitchells and Butler Brewery because they had some live venues and stuff. They thought it might be a good way to go. That didn't pan out. So a couple months later, they changed their name to the Moody Blues. So you keep the M and the B in there. And I guess there was a song called Moody Indigo by Duke Ellington that they liked. And they liked the blues because they were an R&B band. And M&B, Moody Blues, it keeps it, there's some continuity there. In September, they dropped their first single. In November, they dropped their second single, and it hits number 1 in the UK. Go Now hit number 10 in the US. In 1965, they dropped their first album, and before you know it, all the wheels fall off. First, you got Warwick quits, and he's replaced by a guy named Chad Clark. Then Denny Lane quits. Somewhere along the line, Brian Epstein gets involved with the band. They were opening for the Beatles on their final UK tour, and Brian Epstein leaves the band and left them in the lurch after that first album. So what do? Well, they went ahead and got John Lodge and some dude from Swindon named Justin Hayward. He was in a band called the Wild Three with Marty Wilde, whose daughter is Kim Wilde. That Kids in America. April 1967, they meet their producer, Tony Clark, and start to work on Days of Future Past. And the rest, as they say, is history. And you fast forward to 2018, and they're inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where they absolutely deserve to be. And here we go. We're ranking all 16 of the Moody Blues albums, starting at number 16. And we're going the Wayback Machine, 1965, the Magnificent Moodies. This was called Go Now, number 1 Moody Blues in the U.S. They included the hit song. The UK version does not have it, which was typical of albums at that point in time. You look at like Rolling Stones albums and Beatles albums. They were always different in the U.S. and the UK. The U.S. version's obviously better because it's got Go Now. There's like 4 or 5, 6 covers on here, and Denny Lane does most of the singing. It's Mercy Beat. It's not great. It's the only album with Denny Lane and Clint Warwick on it before they left the band. At number 15, it's their final album from 2003 called December. It's a Christmas album, and it's funny how for a while they're both Jethro Tull and Moody Blues final albums were Christmas albums. Well, luckily Ian Anderson corrected that, but it looks like the Moody Blues final album will be this absolute turd. It's only got Justin Hayward, John Lodge, and Graham Edge on here. They do the John Lennon song. They do Irving Berlin. It's just not good. There's a Holst number they do. The only thing on here I like is When a Child is Born. They do a good version of that. It's awesome, but the rest of it's really not. At number 14, their final actual studio album with all new material. It's Strange Times. This thing hit number 92 in the UK and number 93 in the US, so didn't really do that well. You knew it was pretty much over by this point. They're a four-piece here. Patrick Moraz is out of the band at this point, and Danilo Madonia provides keyboards and orchestrations. There's a lot of strings on here, man. It's a real quiet, peaceful album. Too many strings. This is the last album with Ray Thomas on it. It was recorded in Italy, but there is one really good song on here. It's called English Sunset, and I do like that song a lot. At number 13, from 1986, is The Other Side of Life. And yeah, this one here, man, it had the big hit on it. Your Wildest Dreams hit number 9 in the US. It was all over MTV. Well, this album hit number 9 in the US also, number 24 in the UK. It's their 12th album, and it's their first for Polydor. They were using the Threshold name all throughout, but I guess they got bought out. Tony Visconti produced this one, and he does a decent job, but this is just not the Moody Blues that I know. I do like Your Wildest Dream. The Other Side of Life was a pretty good track, but there's some real crap on here. Rock and Roll All Over You is a really bad song. I Just Don't Care is another bad, that's a Justin Hayward song that's just terrible. But I do like the Graham Edge song, The Spirit. Patrick Moraz actually got a songwriting credit on there. At number 12, it's Sur La Mer, the follow-up from 1988. They were trying to cash in on the success of Your Wildest Dreams with a song called I Know You're Out There Somewhere, which was kind of like a sequel to it. This album hit number 38 in the US, number 21 in the UK, and it is a little bit better than its predecessor, a little more rockin'. There is no Ray Thomas on here at all. Because this new style Moody Blues, what are you going to do with a flute player, man? He was still in the band, because live you needed that flute and all those classic songs, but these, synth pop 80s Moody Blues songs, Ray Thomas was just not needed at all. Couple good songs, No More Lies and Deep are good. John Lodge wrote a good song, Love is on the Run. It's all right. Number 11, it's Keys to the Kingdom. What a missed opportunity this 1991 release is. This should have been a great album. It hit number 94 in the US, number 54 in the UK, but it was beset with problems because before this album was even done being recorded, an interview with Patrick Moraz came out where he was dogging the band and their music and his level of participation. He was quickly shown the door. Lawsuits ensued. The whole trial took place on Court TV so you could watch it. Patrick Moraz was looking for $500,000. He got $70,000. So I guess technically he won, but he was thereby scrubbed from all, promotional materials, and he's just called a guest musician on future releases. He was treated bad, but Keys to the Kingdom's not bad, even though Moraz is only on 3 songs. Those 3 songs are really good. Say What You Mean, Celtic Sonat, and Magic. I really do like those. There's a couple other good keyboard players that take Moraz's place, Paul Bliss and Bias Bashel. Not a bad album, not bad at all, but you got to explain to me why there's so many drum machines here too. I don't really understand. Graham Edge is still in the band, man. Why are you using drum machines? At number 10, it's The Present from 1983. What a great album cover. The Maxfield Parrish artwork is just beautiful. And coming on the heels of Long Distance Voyager, man, I was really excited about this album. Hit number 26 in the US, but was not certified gold or platinum or even silver, man. Number 15 in the UK. This was their 11th album, their last on Threshold. But there's some good songs on here. Blue World is great. Sitting at the Wheel's nice. Ray Thomas had a song in like Sorry that I like. Going Nowhere, the Graham Edge song, is real good. This was them trying to keep the formula from the previous album going, where you open with the Justin Hayward songs and you end with the Ray Thomas songs. It just didn't work this time. At number 9 from 1978, it's Octave. This thing hit number 13 in the US, number 6 in the UK. This is the last album with Mike Pender, the last album with their producer, Tony Clark. They took a nice long break after Seven Sojourn. It was like a 5-year break, and they were doing some solo albums and stuff. But in the interim, this thing came out, man. Not including it, it's the Justin Hayward, John Lodge album called Blue Jays. Came out in 75. Just incredible, man. This album is a keeper right there. That should have been a Moody Blues album. I guess they asked Mike Pender to be a part of it, and he was living in California. He really was going through a lot of life changes, and there were definitely some sticking points between members of the band at this point. Where's the Mellotron on this album? That's the only question I have. It really doesn't even sound like the Moody Blues, but there's a couple good songs. John Lodge wrote Steppin' in a Slide Zone, which is pretty good. Justin Hayward's Driftwood is pretty good. It's all right, but hey, man, these next 8 are all great albums, and I'm starting right here. All 8 of these are 10 out of 10 for me. And we're starting with 1981's Long Distance Voyager, the first without Mike Pender. And they were smart, man. Mike declined to tour after the Octave album, so they went ahead and hired Patrick Moraz to tour that album. So this was his first album as a permanent member of the band, the first time he's recording with the band. And I'm telling you, that was really smart. How do you replace Mike Pender? Well, you do not replace him, but you got to have a big name, and they did just that. And Moraz did a great job on this album. Pip Williams is the producer here. This album hit number 1 in the US, their first number 1 album, their second number 1 album in the US, actually, number 7 in the UK. 2 big hits. Gemini Dream hit number 15. The Voice hit number 12. But there's some great songs on here. Graham Edge's 22,000 Days is great. And I like Ray Thomas's Veteran Cosmic Rocker. What a good album this is, man. I wish they would have stayed going along this line instead of going to all the synth pop stuff. But hey, they made a lot of money in the 80s, so whatever. At number 7 from 1972, it's Seventh Sojourn. This was the first album to hit number 1 in the US for the Moody Blues, hit number 5 in the UK. And the reason this thing hit number 1 had nothing to do with I'm just a singer in a rock and roll band. This had everything to do with the fact that Nights in White Satin had been reissued, and it hit number 2 in 1972. Kept off the number 1 spot by Johnny Nash. Some great songs all the way around on this album. Here we're using both a Mellotron and a Chamberlin. They say that this album's kind of based on Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, but Justin Hayward's got some great songs on here. New Horizons, Land of Make Believe. Mike Pender's got Lost in a Lost World. Ray Thomas has For My Lady. Just a good record all the way around. Really like it. Number 6 coming up, boys and girls. And it's Every Good Boy Deserves Favour. Yeah, this is a mnemonic to try to get people to remember what the notes on staff music of the treble clef is. This hit number 1 in the UK, number 2 in the US. This might be their most progressive album. You got Procession, which was a song written by everybody. Hayward wrote The Story in Your Eyes and You Can Never Go Home. John Lodge wrote One More Time to Live. Ray Thomas has a couple songs. Mike Pender's My Song is great. This is just a solid album all the way through, and I really do enjoy it. But here we go at number 5. On the Threshold of a Dream from 1969. These boys dropped 2 albums in 69. This was the first of them. Hit number 1 in the UK, number 20 in the US. And this is probably the most democratic album, both side A and side B. You've got songwriting credits for all 5 members. I mean, just side 1 starts with In the Beginning, which is your Graham Edge poetry. You always have a Graham Edge poem on these albums. Lovely to See You from Justin Hayward. Dear Diary from Ray Thomas. Send Me No Wine from John Lodge. So Deep Within You, Mike Pinder. Everybody gets a crack, but the best stuff is on side 2. Never Comes the Day. What a great song from Justin Hayward. I love that album. At number 4, it's the band's second album with this lineup, their third overall. It's In Search of the Lost Chord from 1968. This hit number 5 in the UK, only hit number 23 in the US. It's an album of exploration and discovery, spiritual development and higher consciousness. Timothy Leary dropping acid and, doing transcendental meditation. What a great record this is. What an amazing album cover. Ride My Seesaw, big hit for John. House of Four Doors, Legend of the Mind by Ray Thomas. Justin Hayward gets Voices in the Sky. Mike Pinder does The Best Way to Travel. Also a Mike Pinder song. And this is the beginning of the great Phil Travers artwork. He does all the great 70s artwork for the band. At number 3, this band is so great that their third best album is one of the most important albums in the history of prog. Yeah, it's The Days of Future Past from 1967. This is the album that started everything for them, and you can argue that this is one of the very first prog albums ever. Are the Moody Blues prog? Yeah, they're probably not, but who cares, man? They influenced so many people, and not least of which, yes, and Genesis, definitely influenced by this band, no doubt. Days of Future Past. This was such a great concept. I mean, the band had definitely some champions and some people that were, definitely pushing them at Decca. They were just starting a new branch off label called Durham. So they wanted the Moody Blues to do a rock version of Dvorak's New World Symphony. They talked to the director and conductor Peter Knight rather, and he decided he just didn't want to do it. He was listening to some of the Moody Blues original material and he liked it better. So without the Decca and Durham executives even knowing, they delved into this song cycle where you've got all these songs with orchestral things in between. They dropped it to the label execs and they approved of it. So it went on to become a big, big hit, but not right away, man. This thing hit number 3 in the US, but it took 5 years. I think it was on the charts for 5 years. And then when they re-released Nights in White Satin in 72, it finally shot up to number 3. What a great, great record. Everybody knows Nights in White Satin, but, Tuesday Afternoon's great. It's, the first time you hear that Graham Edge poetry, just so cool. At number 2, from 1970, it's A Question of Balance. This one is so high because it's got probably my 3 favorite songs the Moody Blues ever did. Question, It's Up to You, and Melancholy Man. I just love those tracks. Question and It's Up to You are Justin Hayward's songs. Melancholy Man was Mike Pinder. Ray Thomas does And the Tide Rushes In. John Lodge does The Tortoise and the Hare and Minstrel Song. Just a great album. But overall, there's one album that I think is stronger from start to finish, and it is my number 1 Moody Blues album. And for all of you that guessed it on my community post last week, congratulations. From 1969, it's To Our Children's Children. Dedicated and inspired by the Apollo 11 moon landings. It starts with Higher and Higher, and you hear a rocket blasting off. Gypsy by Justin Hayward, such a great song. I Never Thought I'd Live to Be 100. Fantastic, but this album is really dominated by other writers. John Lodge does Candle of Life and Eyes of a Child. Ray Thomas, Floating, what a great song that is. Mike Pinder, Out and In. Just such a fantastic album from start to finish. My favorite Moody Blues album, but honestly, there are 8 albums by this band that I rate as perfect. I love them. Are they prog? I don't know, and I don't care, man. They're prog enough for me. I love them. R.I.P. Two members of the band that are in fact no longer with us, and that's a sad reality. We have lost Ray Thomas and Graham Edge. Ray left us in 2020, and Graham left us in 2018. So RIP to those guys. One of the greatest bands of all time. Anyway, tomorrow we're going to be looking at a brand new album from a Norwegian band that you guys know I love. It's the new Tusmork album we're going to be looking at, and I'm excited to talk about it. Anyway, guys, peace in the Middle East, free Tibet, and God save the king. Save that king, boys and girls. Save him. Yeah, I got a little haircut yesterday. You like it? Can you tell? No, didn't think so. Peace.